let's talk about some controversial things. So are you guys aware that everybody is out here cancelling Boiler Room? Are you aware that Boiler Room is being cancelled at the moment? If you're wondering why Boiler Room is being cancelled, they're being cancelled because of their alleged ties to the IDF. Their alleged ties to some weapons manufacturer, which is a weird one because I think Boiler Room has been sold like 4 times. The original owner, Blaze something, because I used to go Boiler Room when it first started, when it was in the peanut factory in Hackney Wick. Big up the peanut factory, big up the OGs. I used to go to Boiler Room when it was in an actual Boiler Room, right? So I remember that guy, tall guy, curly hair, kind of posh. He started Boiler Room. And I remember even when he started Boiler Room, there were people that were saying negative things about Boiler Room because he came from an affluent background, which I never understood, basically, in my opinion. I never understood why it was an issue for somebody in the scene to come from a rich family, rich background, but use that wealth to better the scene, to help the scene, to promote people, to give people a platform. I never understood that. But if you remember, in the early days, Boiler Room was used to get a lot of hate because of the founder being from an affluent family. His family has a Wikipedia and shit with links on it and shit, whatever it may be. So proper wealthy, not even rich, like wealthy shit. All right, cool. For some reason, people get over it. And Boiler Room ends up being one of the premier places to promote people and platform artists and DJs and boost their careers. I think one of the major people I think of who kind of really saw Boiler Room transform their career was Jada G. I think Jada G's set at Dick Mantle kind of changed her career, and she kind of went on to do amazing things after the fact, right? And then I think around that time, when Boiler Room was becoming a thing that would really propel people's careers, there was another cancellation of Boiler Room where people started to argue that Boiler Room wasn't paying their artists. And they're getting all this promotion by Ray-Bans and advertisement and deals with all these other liquor companies and shit, but they're not paying their artists and DJs. And I always thought that argument was also unfair, because I'd imagine running Boiler Room is probably there's probably a hefty bill involved in running Boiler Room as a company, as an operation, as a production. It's not cheap, I'd imagine. From the small bit of experience I have working closely with people who work in film and producing and have cameras and all this malarkey, I know that shit is not cheap. So I'd imagine running Boiler Room, the streaming equipment, the camera equipment, the lighting, the venues, all this sort of stuff is not cheap. So I didn't really think it was much of a problem that they didn't pay people, because I'm assuming they probably covered travel, they probably covered accommodation, they have to hire the venue. And it also is one of the only platforms that can legitimately say the opportunity probably outweighs the money they could ever give you anyway. Sort of similar to Berghand in a way. Like playing in these type of places, it's actually more beneficial for your career to just play on that platform and have a mix on Boiler Room than it is to get money for your set. I'd assume. But if you're an artist, you're struggling, you're coming up, I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't ask for money and you shouldn't deserve the money because you need to eat, and you have an art, you have a talent, people should pay for your services. But I never got that cancellation. Oh, they don't pay. Okay, cool. Then Boiler Room started paying people a nominal fee. I feel like, I don't know how much it was, but it was some sort of nominal fee. Then people got over that. Then Boiler Room got sold to Dice. I think that was the first sale, and people weren't happy with that, because I remember Dice didn't have the best reputation in the scene. I'm not too sure if it had to do with the founders or whatever, but Dice wasn't well regarded for whatever reason. I don't exactly remember the reasons, but I'm thinking back to many, many years. So they sold it to Dice 100%. Then they sold it to another company, and then they sold it to another company. And this final company they sold it to is the one that people have issues with. So Boiler Room has gone through several ownership, several hands, 100% ownership. But I feel like, in my personal opinion, the product hasn't suffered. Even if they've sold it to different parent companies who maybe have different political leanings, I don't feel like they have imposed some of that onto the platform. Like, in comparison, look at Whore, right? That Berlin toilet platform, right? They kind of shot themselves in the foot because they aggressively went after people that were promoting like a pro-Palestine message on their platform, which I get because the founders allegedly are Israeli, right? So I understand why they were uncomfortable with having DJs on their platform promoting pro-Israeli messages when they were like, hey, we're pro-Palestine, we're Israeli. What happened on October 7th was not cool. We're not going to have you promoting Palestine and in a way, you know, being pro-Hamas, whatever it may be. But they were physically taking streams down. They were telling people not to take off their scarves and not wear certain t-shirts. That was a bad move, right? So they let their own politics influence who they booked and how they expressed themselves on their platform, which killed them. Which is why effectively Whore is kind of dead now. Big DJs don't really go in there anymore. If you check their, you know, it's kind of sad because I feel like a lot of DJs that they're platforming now are probably quite good. Local people coming up and shit. But no one gives a fuck because all the big stars aren't going there. You kind of need the big stars to kind of give the smaller people a shine. You know, if you have a Dixon playing on a Boiler Room, it's going to make people check out some of the smaller quote unquote people that play for that are in Shanghai, that play in Mexico, all that sort of shit. So Hall kind of shot himself in the foot by allowing their political leanings to sort of influence who they play, who picks who plays, how they play, what they wear. I think Boiler Room's done a good job of being somewhat politically neutral, even though they are owned by people who have a very clear preference of who they kind of align themselves with and shit. So it kind of feels a bit out of order. It kind of feels a little bit over the top. It kind of feels a little bit unnecessary to cancel Boiler Room because of who they're owned by. Because I don't feel like the operation, the day-to-day running of Boiler Room, or the platform that Boiler Room has created has been impacted by who it is owned by. Yes, you can be upset by it, but I don't feel like it has affected people's ability to say pro-Palestinian things on a platform. And I don't feel like it's affected their ability to play on there either. It's still helping people boost their careers. So I don't feel like a boycott of Boiler Room is actually going to do what people think it's going to do. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's to be the case. Anyway, one of the first stumbling blocks happened with this news here. Courtesy of Mixmax. It said Daytimers withdraw from Lost Village and Mighty Hoopla slots over Superstruct acquisition. So let's read the actual article here, courtesy of Mixmag. Apologies for the microphone bump. South Asian Underground collective Daytimers pulled out of an appearance at the Mighty Hoopla and Lost Village festivals this year due to promoter Superstruct Entertainment acquisition by private equity firm KKR. So I think that's the one that is owned by people of Israeli descent or whatever. Oh no, people that are funding Israeli weapons and shit. I think so. Daytimers announced the news via a post on Instagram on March 17th, saying, in light of KKR's acquisition, Daytimers are dropping all commitments related to Superstruct's owned events. We will find ways to communicate our goal of platforming South Asian artistry without letting our spaces be complicit in the genocide, they continue. Superstruct is a live entertainment company behind 80 festivals across Europe, Australian focused festivals, including Mighty Hoopla, Lost Village, Field Day. So if you go to Field Day, you are basically funding IDF, DGTL, Crush Tracks, Brunch Electronic, and recently they acquired Boiler Room from DICE. The company was acquired by KKR, the world's second largest investment firm, in 2024 for a sum of 1.3 billion. Joining several controversial projects in KKR's portfolio, including weapons manufacturer Serco International and Coastal GasLink Pipeline, an organization linked to illegal Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territory. So if you are politically motivated and inclined, I understand why you have a strong position against this, because basically if by supporting Boiler Room, you are directly supporting the occupation of Israeli settlements in Palestine. You are directly there is no if, buts, or maybe. So if you are politically motivated, you should be boycotting Boiler Room. You should take a hard and fast line. But if your career is as a DJ, you should be a little bit cautious about making such a hasty decision, because boycotting Boiler Room isn't really going to do anything for the people in Gaza. Unfortunately, we really hope it does, but it won't. You're better off donating money. You're better off supporting certain causes. You're better off flying there yourself and getting on the ground level and actually helping people. But I don't think not watching Boiler Room, unsubscribing from Boiler Room, disliking Boiler Room sets is actually going to change anything. It's not. It really isn't, in my personal opinion. So I think DJs and artists should be a little bit wary of going there, especially because most of the people that I've seen boycotting Boiler Room are black and brown folks who are very, you know, principled in their stances. But there's also a reason why our white Caucasian counterparts aren't making those hasty decisions or aren't going out and saying, I'm cutting off all community, because it doesn't really do much, you know? It doesn't really do much. You are maybe, I guess, virtue signaling for the crowd, but really and truly, when it comes to actually affecting change and helping the people that you want to help, is it really going to help if you don't play on Boiler Room? Or is it just going to hurt you in your career, or, you know, delay the opportunity for you to kind of get a bit further, or to maybe you to have an ability to connect to bigger, you know, to more fans, to build your profile, to become a big artist, all this sort of stuff. I'm not really too sure. I guess it's something that someone has to kind of answer for themselves on a case-by-case basis. In their post, Daytimers went on to detail that they stand by our commitment for the Palestinian struggle, to indigenous lives across the globe ruined by the extraction, and for those designated disposal by the forces of capital. We encourage our cultural actors to do the same and to stand with organizations in the process of disengagement, joining us on this action of solidarity in the coming weeks. They said we deeply sympathize with workers caught up in this acquisition beyond their control. Exactly. And that's a really heartbreaking thing, because people at Boiler Room are probably now being looked at a certain way, and they just work a job. They just work a job. They're trying to earn a salary. They don't really have any say-so in who gets acquired, how they get acquired. They're just trying to pay their bills. And now they're being kind of thrown in on the deep end with this whole shit, and it's not really their fault. But let's continue on with a few other bits and bobs here that I went to cover. This is a statement courtesy of Boiler Room. So even though they are owned now by this group, right, KKR, that are directly funding, you know, weapons manufacturing, all this other acquisition in Gaza, you know, Israeli-owned occupation of Palestine and shit, the Boiler Room staff still have enough sway that they can make these statements, even though the owners of the company probably don't agree with the statement. So I think that goes to show that the ownership and the people that work behind the scenes to make Boiler Room what it is are completely detached, you know, and one thing doesn't influence the other thing. I think that is something to be somewhat, you know, credited to them, right? That people are able to kind of work there, have a very, you know, have a very clear political opinion and stance, and not have their overlords, their bosses actually influence which way they say or which way they lean, what things they say and don't say and whatever. But, you know, I could be wrong. So this is courtesy of the Boiler Room Instagram account. On ownership. In September 2021, Boiler Room was acquired by DICE. All prior investments were removed from the business and a new board was formed. At this point, DICE owned 100% of the company. So 100% was sold. In January 2025, DICE sold Boiler Room to Superstruct, in the second largest festival group in the world, and who themselves are owned by KKR, which has investments in the categorically do not align with our values. And our, I mean, I'm assuming they mean Boiler Room staff. No Boiler Room staff at any level, any ownership or voting rights in the company, and had no control over the sale. Let's repeat that again. No Boiler Room staff at any level held any ownership or any voting rights in the company and had any control over the sale. We are also unable to divest because we have no say in our ownership. They can't even divest. They have no say whatsoever. Next slide. Boiler Room has been through various changes in control, investors, board, and ownership. And through this commitment to editorial independence, Palestine has never wavered. No investor, past or present, has ever influenced our output. This will never change. Exactly. And that's something that should be celebrated. Despite them changing ownership hands for 3 or 4 times, and the original owners having no part in the daily running of Boiler Room, they are still able to be completely independent from the owners and just do their own thing. I guess it makes sense business-wise. If they're already running a pretty, you know, smooth ship and the money's still coming in, the ads are still coming in, it makes no sense for whoever buys it to start meddling. Even though, you know, it's likely to happen, because if someone invests money into you, they have every right to have a say-so in how you operate, you'd imagine. But it does say a lot about how they're structured, that they're able to just do their own thing without it being influenced by who actually owns Boiler Room outright. It continues. We will always remain unapologetically pro-Palestine. We continue to adhere to BDS and PACBI guidelines regarding artist programming and brand partnership, and engage with Palestinian artists and organizers in order to formalize our internal policies in line with this commitment. We uphold international law and human rights for all, regardless of identity, which I fucking love. Editorial mission. Boiler Room's editorial mission is to champion grassroots scenes in every corner of the globe. Led by communities we serve, we empower the artists, DJs, creative minds, risk takers, and community leaders to highlight causes and tell stories from the inside out. We are committed to continuing this work and guarantee that it will always be in the DNA of Boiler Room. You can read more on this in our link in bio. Now, if I have to be controversial, I would say that I think it's very, I won't say short-sighted, but I don't want my platforms to be political in any way, shape or form anyway. I want them to be apolitical. I want all my platforms, especially when it comes to DJ streaming, to be apolitical, to allow anybody on there who's got talent, who's got drive, who's got skill, whatever it may be, to do or say whatever they want on said platform within reason. But I don't think they need to come out and make any political statements. It shouldn't be necessary. You know how people cancelled Berghain and are now soft, you know, I'm not guessing soft boycotting, but a lot of DJs that were playing at Berghain quite regularly. One comes to mind is Gabriel Quarteng, who hasn't really played there recently, but a lot of people, I think even Matrix Man, big up Matrix Man, haven't played in Berghain. They've all kind of purposely gone out their way to boycott Berghain because they felt as if Berghain didn't make a statement or a stance. I think first of all, I think mostly to do with Gaza and Palestine, not really to do with what happened in Ukraine. If I'm not mistaken, and some people didn't like that. But I think Berghain did right. I think they learned their lesson by what happened in Ukraine. They don't really want to get involved anymore. And I think that's the best way to go about doing things. Be apolitical, be a platform where people can come and kind of showcase their skills. But you don't need to you don't really need to be outright with your political leanings. I don't think it's necessary at all. Because I think it causes more problems than good. Because eventually it will come a point where you have to pick a side. And in this regard, people are now trying to cancel Boiler Room, even though they picked the right side from the beginning. You know, they were never on the wrong side of history, Boiler Room. They've always picked the right side, especially despite their ownership, but they're still being cancelled, which is kind of unfair when you think about it. But I also understand people who are very politically motivated and have a strong, you know, opinion on that sort of stuff, who are saying, you know, they just don't stand for it at all, and they're willing to kind of die on that hill. I kind of understand it, but I think if you're a DJ, if you're an artist, you have to be a little bit, you have to kind of let cooler heads prevail. You have to take a deep breath and really think about your career, because I don't necessarily think this is a stance that needs to be taken when it comes to Boiler Room, especially given everything they've done for the scene, you know? I don't think it's necessary. Don't get me wrong, it's just a streaming platform. Another one can pop up out of the blue and take over, but so far no one has. Whore for a small time was looking like it was taken over, but they ended up shooting themselves in the foot by fucking, you know, telling people that were having pro-Palestinian messages to take them down, which is a big fucking error. But I feel like Boiler Room has done enough and has put in enough work in the scene. They should be given, I won't say the benefit of the doubt, but in what we heard of the statement, I don't know why they're not being believed and why people aren't able to separate the ownership from the daily runnings on Boiler Room, and I said kind of, you know, peer pressuring people to boycott Boiler Room. Maybe that's not really going to actually help things on a ground level, but I could be wrong here. Big up business Teshno. They put together a lot of screenshots kind of talking about what's going on. So I'm going to read everything here and we're going to continue on. Business Teshno says, considering that the vast majority of DJs pulling out Boiler Room lineups are black or brown artists, nowhere near Ben UFO's level of popularity or wealth, that last part is really wild, which is kind of true, I think, to be fair. Which is also why I think a lot of DJs should be hesitant and not so quick to sort of cancel and write off Boiler Room in general, because it looks like other artists who aren't black or brown, who maybe aren't as politically motivated, who maybe don't give a fuck of Palestine as much, are not taking that sort of stance and are probably going to be thriving, you know? So you have to be a little bit kind of careful with those type of things. Another tweet here, courtesy of Business Teshno, post Blaze Belleville. That's the guy that owned it. Blaze Belleville, founder of Boiler Room, said, "As we turn 15 and enter our next stage of growth, we're excited to partnering with Superstruct on this chapter." Yeah, I guess so. So basically, it was known since the day dot that's, you know, they were dealing with Superstruct and their alliances and what they're doing. Maybe, I guess people maybe find out recently or did their researches recently in terms of what was going on, so they could kind of affect change that way, which I don't have a problem with in the slightest. Another post here says, huge day for boring white DJ protecting their bag. I guess this is aimed towards Ben UFO, because he went out of his way to kind of say he's not going to be cancelling Boiler Room, and he's going to sort of basically be standing by them, I think, in some respects. We'll get to that in a minute. Another post here for British Teshno says, according to multiple independent sources, Ben UFO brokered the endorsement between Boiler Room and BDS. He convinced BDS that the scene would back his decision. I'm not too sure how true that is, but it's just funny if it is true. Another post here, courtesy of Business Teshno. It quotes Ben UFO. It says, file under allyship fatigue. Let's go for the next screenshot. So why now is the time to pause through allyship fatigue? Another person here says, Boiler Room discourse is so funny because KKR is private equity. They don't give a shit about anything, their overall margins. If an organized boycott affected Boiler Room's balance sheet and projected earnings, they'd sell that shit tomorrow. They're the ideal candidate for a boycott. So I guess people want to boycott Boiler Room in the hopes that KKR sells it. That's when they'll get back on board. I don't know how effective or how likely that is to be the case, you know? Why not just support Boiler Room because they're platforming great artists, but then not support KKR? Is it not that difficult? Can't you just not buy the merch and just watch the videos? Or does that also support Boiler Room? I don't know. Maybe that's why they're intrinsically linked. You know? You have to separate any involvement from the IDF, any involvement from the illegal settlement of Israelis in Gaza and shit, from Boiler Room, if you want to have a clear conscience, I'm assuming. Another screenshot here. Boiler Room's MTR PACBI solidarity statement is a cynical ass move to protect their assets. They'd push your grandma in front of a car if it meant 2% growth for their assets under management. There is potentially a case to say that Ben is part of the boys club and that Boiler Room has always been shady, perpetual money problems, current liabilities, and the multiple rounds of staff firings. I don't think that's true. I think the staff firings make sense if you've ever been in a company that's changed ownership, changed hands. I've been a part of company. I was at Nike when just the fucking head of energy marketing changed, and she ended up firing everybody and hiring a whole bunch of new staff. That happens. Just one person can end up, you know, telling everybody to skedaddle. So whenever there's a change in leadership, there's always going to be a change in subordinates and whatever it may be. I think that's a normal part of business, especially when there's change of ownership. Forget even leadership, ownership. They're definitely going to want to have their own people. I don't think that means it's shady. And it's also weird, the Ben UFO hate. He was a darling of the left a minute ago, and now because he's not completely aligning with the boycott, you know, Boiler Room thing, people are maybe calling him out and basically trying to call him a Zionist. Another post here says, right up to the point the payday gets so high, these compromises their morals of cash. Boiler Room hoard themselves out to corporate investors' interests a long time ago. This is just another inevitable and wholly foreseeable outcome of doing so, along with things like chilling effect of morality clauses and corporate ethos policies. If Ben wasn't a financial beneficiary of the platform, he'd have no problem disowning it or out of hand, rather than using dog whistle tactics in the op-ed. Myopic purity politics is straight out of the Bright Bar. In short, he's an articulate quisling. Not some neutral moral standpoint crying for reason. Again, I think this is a bit unfair. If you care so much about Boiler Room's ability to launch careers of Palestinian artists, maybe use your huge beloved record label to do the same. Would be refreshing change to pace after nearly 20 years of 90% releases from white artists. Okay, that's a good point. But I also think that's what Boiler Room is meant to be doing, no? It continues. This is more screenshots taken, I guess, from Ben UFO's Instagram page. Someone saying, honestly, so brave of Ben to remain largely silent over the past year as genocide unfolded before our eyes, and yet he finally feels compelled to chime in, not only so he can criticize the tactics of his peers actually trying to do something about it in nightlife, but to also so he can defend a useless, actually harmful cultural institution that is directly tied to the company involved in said genocide, because they might launch the career of the next DJ Mag Top 100. Not only is that not how industry works anymore, it wouldn't at all be the reason to protect Boiler Room, even if it was. Nah, I think the only reason that I would say you protect Boiler Room is because it seems like the day-to-day operations aren't actually influenced by the people that own it. So they're still willing to platform pro-Palestinian artists. They're still willing to platform whatever people on there and not have, you know, a lot of sway, more sway than they should probably have more say so in who actually plays and what message that they spread on their platform, but they don't. They kind of let the you know, the people that run Boiler Room run it instead of the people that own it to run it, which I think goes to show that, you know, the platform is somewhat politically neutral, you'd assume. But I guess it can't be neutral if the owners are funding genocide. It just can't, you know? It's impossible. Another post here, somebody taking a piss at Ben UFO. Do you think Ben UFO or any popular white DJ ever reflects on how much of their success can be attributed to this calculated, selective silence intersliced with knowing that the zeitgeist requires a palliative declaration of solidarity, but never extending to any sustained material commitment? A lot of big words there, but I feel like it's not fair. I feel like it's not fair to expect everybody to have the same level of activism as everybody else. I don't feel like that's fair, and I don't feel like that makes them a bad person. Just because somebody's not willing to speak up, just because someone's not willing to post a black square, a fucking copy and paste message, to share a particular post, doesn't mean they don't give a shit. Doesn't mean they don't care. Doesn't mean they're not interested. Doesn't mean anything, you know? And just because they don't do it to your level, just because they're not sharing images of kids getting blown up in Gaza every single day on their feed, doesn't mean they don't give a fuck about the people in Gaza, you know? Everyone does their political activism in different ways. But I hate how if you're not doing it that way or the way that they do it, you're wrong and then you're a bad person. It's like, no. Let's get away from that level of thinking. I don't like that. Another post here says, reading Ben's statement has made my blood boil. Why the fuck do all these white men narcissists think everything is done for image and clout, even when it's about trying to defend genocide? Okay. Another person says, literally the nerve to say that Boiler Room is too valuable to Palestinian artistry to be destroyed, as if its entire existence isn't directly a result of black and brown creativity. Hessel Audio Crew always been pure vanilla milk toast. I don't know. I don't think that's how you spell milk toast, but I still love it regardless. Where's Ramadan Man at? Get your bro. Yeah, the whole Boiler Room getting bought by private equity from that firm that invests in Israeli defense contractors is unfortunate and you shouldn't support them. But let's ask, why is a private equity company that invests in defense contractors buying a party series? I'm assuming some sort of like whitewashing, money laundering, maybe. It also makes a lot of money, I'd imagine, Boiler Room, which is probably why they bought it. And it's also an easy to understand business model, I'm assuming. It's probably ways to kind of, you know, invest more, to kind of get more. There's a way to kind of, yeah. I'm assuming that's probably why they invested in it. It's probably that. I mean, I don't think it's cultural cachet or to change the feeling, hearts and minds of people, in my personal opinion. Another person says, the thing that drives me crazy about people being unwilling to abandon the ship from Boiler Room is that they literally have nothing proprietary and would become as irrelevant as whore the second good DJs stop laundering their reputation. No one has a monopoly on film DJ performances. But that's the thing. I don't think people are not backing off of Boiler Room completely because they feel like it's a cultural institution that needs to be safeguarded. I think they don't really feel like the reason behind it is worthwhile. You know, that's it. I don't think they actually have I don't think they think it's a strong enough reason for them to ditch Boiler Room completely just because they are owned by an investment firm that has ties to the IDF or the, you know, whatever else we mentioned before. I don't feel like they feel like that's enough. They probably feel like there needs to be more meat on the bone for them to actually cut Boiler Room off completely. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of tend to agree. I understand why some people would. I don't think it's enough for everybody to kind of completely cancel Boiler Room because it seems like the day-to-day runnings or operations of Boiler Room aren't impacted by the ownership. I'm not too sure that should matter, but it shouldn't. It should, you know? Start your own lot radio. Start your own mix series. Start your own party. The only thing you have to gain in following Boiler Room to co-opt you is a shortcut to a wider audience. One that probably won't be very receptive or open-minded audience anyway. No, that's not true. I think that's not fair. You can't say that Boiler Room is a shortcut to fame, but then also say that Boiler Room fame is not worthwhile and it's not really going to be whatever you think it's going to be. No. We've seen Boiler Room literally transform people's career. Like I mentioned, Jada G, always a great artist, but her career got 10x by her performances being recorded on Boiler Room during Dick Mantle. We know that to be the case. Even Whore did it. The Lady Machine. I didn't know much about the Lady Machine prior to Whore, and I feel like the Lady Machine and a few other people, I can't remember who, off the bat, their careers got launched off the back of fucking Whore. So these platforms do help people. It's unfortunate how much they do. There's a reliance too much on these platforms, and a lot of DJs doing their own thing. But those platforms do fucking help. Let's not lie. They do really, really help. Let's continue. Boiler Room posts that Yoshiki Yukimatsu video every time they get into trouble. Leave that man alone. It's fucking hilarious. And then I want to actually show you the statement that Ben UFO put out there, because I feel like that statement's the one that really fucking upset people in defense of Boiler Room. He said, yesterday, the BDS movement website posted this article relating to Boiler Room and their sale to KKR. A lot of people sent me messages about boycotting the platform, having been involved with DJs for Palestine campaign in 2018, a time when these issues were largely ignored and undiscussed in the European scene. So he's telling you, I've got skin in the game. I was about this fucking DJs for Palestine shit before some of you guys even knew Palestine fucking existed, you know? He's letting his nuts hang. He's saying it with his chest, Ben UFO. Cool. He continues. KKR and their divestments from the relevant companies in their portfolio is presumably the goal of any protest against Boiler Room, who are a blip in their portfolio and whose staff are 2 steps removed from the running of this enormous investment company. The reality of working in music in 2023 is that private equity is everywhere. That's true, by the way, because if you're going to cancel Boiler Room, you have to cancel Field Day. And if you cancel Field Day, you probably have to cancel a bunch of other festivals out there. And even probably clubs. Even probably clubs that have shady owners who may or may not have fought for the IDF, who may or may not have direct links to the Israeli government, who may or may not be responsible for the genocide of the Palestinian people. That's the thing. So I guess it doesn't sit well with people who are politically motivated, who are activists, to pick and choose, because there is no pick and choose when you're activist. Everyone is fuck everybody. It's fuck everybody that's not on your side, and I love that attitude. But if you're an artist and a DJ, you have to move a little bit more. You have to move a little bit smart, unfortunately. You know, I guess it's, you know, you wouldn't want that because you want to go ride super hard, but I get it. But hey, what do I know? The reality of working in music in 2023 is that private equity is everywhere. I was being asked a question where choosing either answer makes me a hypocrite. I don't agree with the framing neither. It seems do PACBI who advocate for more realistic tactics and for actual outreach as opposed to myopic purity politics. Okay. Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's where he loses me a little bit. You can't be pointing fingers and like chastising people for the way that they want to do their politics, for the way they want to do their activism. You can have your stance and how you want to do it and explain your reasons behind it, but starting to diss people, and I'm assuming he's only saying that because he's probably receiving a lot of insults in his inbox, but dissing people and calling their way of, you know, outreach or their way of political protesting myopic politics is a little bit wild, a little bit cheeky there from BN UFO. He continues, Boiler Room are one of the only platforms in the world that still have potential to launch careers. I don't know if that matters, innit? I guess it matters because he launched DJ for Palestine and works with them early. But that's a weird defense, innit? You could just say, you know, I don't feel like the KKR's involvement in Boiler Room has actually hampered what they do for the scene. And until I see different, I'm going to rock with them, you know? But to say that the only platform in the world that still, it's just, are they though? Every other site, every other magazine has a YouTube channel that they also feature DJs on. You know, there's the Mud Show, loads of other things out there that people are fucking jumping on. So I don't think it's the only one. They've used their position to make documentaries about and film events in Palestine. They're responsible for launching careers of Palestinian musicians. I don't believe that there is any realistic possibility that a boycott of Boiler Room affects KKR in a meaningful way. The only plausible outcome I can see is that we reduce the capacity of any vocal pro-Palestinian platform on this scale in our world to continue campaigning of fundraising. So that I also don't agree with, you know? I don't agree with like any boycott isn't going to do anything, because I think some boycott would probably affect KKR to the point where they probably would leave, because they just want, you know, they want their money, they want to get their return. So if they're seeing that their investment or their involvement in it is not yielding many returns, they'll probably end up dipping and selling it. But I think if you're okay with boycotting, you have to be okay with people that don't want to boycott by default. I think if you have strong opinions about this and that, whatever, you have to be okay with the girl just saying, nah, you know, I'm just not going to eat that, which makes sense, which makes complete sense. But hey, what do I know? You don't have to agree with PACBI or BDS. I also don't agree with them on everything. You don't have to like Boiler Room either. Continue to advocate for a boycott if you want, but please don't pretend you're speaking. Oh, see, I don't like that. Continue to advocate for Boiler Room if you want, but also let me do what I want to do my way. Don't start chastising and teasing or insulting people. I don't like this from Ben UFO. Continue to advocate for a boycott if you want, but please don't pretend you're speaking on behalf of Palestinians or Palestine, sorry, when what you're actually doing is posting knee-jerk reactions on social media for all advancement of our personal brand. Okay, I guess so. Personally, like I said before, I feel like Ye's just looking for attention. You know, it's not really something that he kind of cares about deeply. He's clearly just, you know, there looking for that kind of love and attention and shit. He's not getting it in certain places. But in this particular regard, I just feel like it's a bit short-sighted, man. I feel like it's a bit short-sighted. I feel like it doesn't really address the problem. I feel like the Boiler Room staff comment on the page basically tells us what we need to know about the daily runnings of the company. Isn't really affected by the people that actually run the show day to day. And I'm not too sure what they're going to do going forward. I don't know what they're going to do, because eventually this will get to a point where maybe some of the fans will start pressuring some of the DJs not to appear on Boiler Room. If they share posts, they'll probably get downvoted and whatever else it may be. So it might end, they might actually end up like a fucking, what's it called? They might end up like, you know, one of those smaller people that come out here and do these type of things. But I somewhat rate Ben UFO for saying this, because he's probably cost him a lot. His reputation is probably in tatters now, and he was always a beloved person in the scene. So he's probably going to suffer a lot reputationally going forward. But I guess he kind of had to, considering everything that was popping up. You know what I mean? There's no way this man could not fucking go in there and start flipping blabbering. So I get it in this regard. I just think it's unfair that people are being held to that level of expectation when it comes to this sort of shit. And I feel like everybody should be allowed to protest against Boiler Room the way they want to protest. And there's no right or wrong way, especially when the Boiler Room staff themselves have made it very clear that the owners, despite them being very dicey and being involved in some very nefarious things, are not actually involved in the day-to-day running of the platform. But I also understand if you've got strong opinions about Gaza and Palestine, that you're, or Gaza and Israel, sorry, that you're going to go out of your way to, you know, not be involved in anything that supports them at all, even if it ends up fucking costing you everything, which I also respect. You know what I mean? I also have to respect. You know, you break up with your girlfriend just so you can kind of go to on pro-Palestine fucking rallies is fucking incredible. So big up that guy, and big up Boiler Room, and hopefully they figure it out in the end. Hopefully the DJs figure out they want to protest, they want to boycott. I get it, but I feel like if we don't, we just need more platforms. That's what we need basically. Whore, like I said, has fell by the wayside. Mixmag is gonna do what Mixmag does with their thing. I don't think it's regular. DJ Mag, they haven't had one in a while, so we're gonna need a regular place for people to kind of pop in and do the thing that's kind of somewhat apolitical, you know, maybe Apple Music type of things. That'll be pretty good going forward. You get me? So big up everybody. Big up them. Big up them. Big up them. Moving on.